Hey, this is Roland McPherson, Real Turf Tech. This is video number 2 on the subject of backlapping. Gonna go over some of the common questions and comments that I've heard over the years about lapping. 1, does lapping cone reels? 2, does lapping wear down reels prematurely? 3, is it effective on hard bed knives? 4, does relief grinding make lapping more effective? 5, what is lapping compound made of? So, 1, does lapping cone reels? No, it does not. I've taken over 6 shops in my career, and at 4 of those shops I've discovered coned reels. Most manufacturers specify that a reel should not be coned more than 10 thousandths or 10 mil. As always, when I say mil, I mean 1,000th of an inch. So at those 4 shops that I took over that I noticed reels were coned, they were typically, not all of them were, some of them were. It's not unusual to find one that was out 25 mil from one end to the other, but the worst greens reel that I found was 50, and that was severe. When I put that unit on a flat surface plate, I could rock that unit from opposite corners like a seesaw. And there was no lapping compound in that shop. They had not lapped there for several years before I arrived. There was a problem with the spin grinder that went unnoticed, and that's what was causing the reels to be coned, was improper spin grinding. And that, I've seen that at least 2 of the shops that I've taken over. Was the cone reels were due to a problem with the spin grinder that went unnoticed by the mechanic because he was not measuring reels before and after grinding. So, second question, does lapping wear down reels prematurely? No. I typically backlap every day, usually with very fine grit 220 compound, very quickly, no more than a minute usually. And I measure reels incessantly, every before and after I grind almost every reel. And my reels last at least 5 years, 5 to 7 years, and I record the diameter of the reels when I measure them, and I can project out when they're going to reach that minimum diameter. And with any reel, greens, fairway, rough, they last at least 5 to 7 years. That's with daily lapping. The question number 3, is it effective on hard bed knives? It's not nearly as effective on hard bed knives. I do not use hard bed knives anymore, and when I say hard bed knife, I'm talking about the knives that came out, in the last several years. I think Toro was the first one to come out with them. The Edge Max bed knives. The I've had some experience with them. The thin Greensmore bed knives, those are the ones where the entire knife is hardened, seem to respond a little bit better to lapping than the thicker fairway bed knives with the hardened insert. With those thicker knives with the hardened insert, it's lapping may not be worth the 5 minutes it takes. I tried them side by side with a fairway mower with soft bed knives, exact same mower, and for 2 seasons, and I found that lapping did not seem to have hardly any effect on those hardened knives. But I got a better quality of cut with the soft bed knives, provided that I did that frequent lapping and more frequent adjustments. So I've been using soft bed knives and lapping for years after experimenting with hard knives. 4, does relief grinding make lapping more effective? Absolutely. I think it does. And I'll get back to that in a second. And the final question is, what is compound made of? Most lapping compounds that we use in our business are made of aluminum oxide grit, and there's also that's the dark gray colored compound, and there's a green colored compound that's available. It's made of silicon carbide grit. I did try that green compound with hard bed knives and did not with the thicker hard knives with the insert. That even the green compound did not seem to have much of effect. Okay, back to this question. Does relief grinding make lapping more effective? Absolutely. Here's a depiction of a lapping operation. Not a real mower. This is something else. So I've got a workpiece here that I'm going to lap so that the surface is flat to within microns. The example that I'm using here is a gauge block. A gauge block is a very precise block of metal that has been ground flat on a grinding machine and then lapped, because lapping will produce a more precisely flat surface than grinding on a grinding machine. Here's the side view of a lapping plate. Most lapping plates have grooves in them, and most of those grooves are tapered. And if they're not when they're new, they become tapered. It's because the lapping compound grit is being drawn as this, either the lapping plate is moved or the work is moved back and forth. The grit gets drawn up in between the work and the lap. And this taper here facilitates that grit being drawn up in between. So here I've got a bed knife that's being lapped and a reel blade that's in new condition. It's got the milled relief up here, and then the factory ground relief or factory type ground relief right here. So about 2/3 of the thickness of this reel blade has been ground away, leaving 1/3 for the landing area. And this reel is rotating backwards, and this relief grind right here does help make lapping more effective. This taper helps draw compound down this way, helps it get in between the lap and the workpiece. As you saw in my first video, this area of the bed knife right here is what's being ground by the lapping process. Very similar to what we have here. If this workpiece was being moved in this direction, that would be like the lapping plate being moved in that direction. So and helping to draw the grit in between the lap and the workpiece. That's what we have here. So that is one reason I relief grind a factory style relief. There are other reasons for relief grinding. This is just one of them.